Alright, you guys, welcome to another video. This video is not going to be a particular lesson on the magical arts, but it's going to be kind of a sub-lesson of sorts, kind of just a discussion on a particular practice, which many people do, including myself, called uncrossing. And I explain what uncrossing is to the best of my ability in the video that is stitched to this video, where I show you the recipe for an uncrossing bath potion recipe. But I just wanted to kind of briefly give a little bit more information out about uncrossing before we continue. Uncrossing essentially is the magical practice of removing self-imposed hexes on yourself and jinxes. And we do this in a number of different ways, you guys. Jinxes can come from a multitude of different things. You can jinx or hex yourself by doing the opposite of what you know is right in a situation. So, for instance, if you were to engage in something, let's just say, for instance, peer pressure, someone was offering you drugs, and you knew deep down inside that you weren't supposed to do it, but you did it anyway. And you ended up having a horrible experience with that drug, and it really messed up your chemistry, so forth, or so on and so forth. You received that bad experience because you violated your own intuition. You did something that you knew you weren't supposed to do, and this is what hexes us. When we do things that we know we shouldn't do, it can kind of contradict the natural flow of our own intuition and our own instincts. I hope that makes sense, because you violate something that you know, you do something that you know you're not supposed to do. Now, that in no way, shape, or form is the only way we can hex ourselves or jinx ourselves. We can for instance, we can be in situations maybe at work or at school where something embarrassing happens to us, and that embarrassment affects us on such a deep level that it penetrates into the subconscious mind and affects how our subconscious mind manifests our reality. So uncrossing, essentially, you guys, is the art of using magical ritual and ritual in general, things like meditation, in unison with health, to reprogram the things that are bad programs, so to speak. So you can think of like a jinx or a hex as a kind of like a virus in your computer. It affects the way that the hardware and the software works. It affects your operating system. When we cross ourselves, we basically mix up our energies, and it affects the way that we navigate through life. So it can affect your not your endurance levels. Well, maybe, because it can affect your vitality levels. When you have all these things that have happened in your life that have affected you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, but you have not cleared them. So essentially, uncrossing is a way to uncross yourself, to clear things out that need to be cleared out. You can think of it as kind of a mental, emotional, and spiritual ritual of vacuuming the debris and the dust in the corners of your house. Now, the not necessarily the beauty, that just was kind of, excuse me, a Freudian slip, potentially, but the purpose of life, ladies and apparently I have not had enough caffeine today. The goal of magic, you guys, is to clear out the subconscious mind so that we can reprogram it, so that we can achieve the life that we want. So if you're not familiar with the subconscious mind, if you're new to my Patreon page, please go back and check out my Learning the Magical Arts series lessons 1 and 2, as well as the refresher course. I believe there's 4 altogether. Go back and watch those. I discuss what the subconscious mind is and why it is essentially the meat and potatoes of all forms of magic, at least when we're talking about practical magic. When practical magic, for those who don't know, is magic that you use to make ends meet and exceed in life. So maybe you have ill health. Maybe your finances are in disarray. Practical magic would be the use of rituals, things like candle spells, things like working with the Kabbalistic tree of life and the angel spheres on the tree of life. You're using these particular energies that are often associated with the planets to tap into certain currents of energy so that you can rewrite, I wouldn't say rewrite, so that you can reprogram your entire psyche. The planets are like a filing system, ladies and gentlemen, of particular energies, virtues that you can tap into. And they are a vast, vast wealth of information and power. For instance, I'm currently working on a Saturn ritual that I plan on doing probably continually every day for the next 60 to 90 days. I'm 29 years old and I'm in the middle of my Saturn return. Saturn is about to be in the exact same position that it was when I was born. That really signifies a state of maturity. That's when a man or a woman truly becomes an adult, not 21, not 18. It's a well-known fact that in secret societies and magical orders and sects and things like that, no, not sex, S-E-X, sects, S-E-C-T-S, in magical groups and sects, sounds like sex though, a man or a woman doesn't become an adult until he or she has his or her first Saturn return. But there's some things about my Saturn return that I'm trying to fix. And Saturn is the teacher of patience and diligence and hard work and dedication and sowing what you reaping what you sow. So I will get on to explaining planetary magic in the near future, you guys, and how to use it. It has a lot to do with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life is essentially like a filing cabinet. It's like a computer diagram of how the universe works and how the planets are interconnected to our psyche and our human experience here. It's also a diagram of how consciousness, the absolute consciousness, breaks itself down into different states of material, from light to physical matter. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life can teach you how to communicate with the angelic kingdoms and the angel kingdoms that are contained within the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is composed of things called sephirots. They're spheres, and these spheres represent each planet. And each planet has different angels and different hierarchies of angels and spirits within the particular sephirot. And you can tap into the sephirot. You can tap into, say, the sephirot of Mars with certain rituals and incantations and affirmations and all sorts of really, really interesting stuff that the ceremonial high magicians have been doing for hundreds of years. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life is in no way, shape, or form strictly a Jewish tradition, even though, the Kabbalah is largely a Jewish tradition, but it goes back into ancient Sumer, into ancient Egypt, and potentially even further than that. So, again, you guys, just to wrap things out without getting too detailed about it, uncrossing rituals are rituals that are designed so that you can ritualistically attempt to remove certain bad patterns and certain forms of psychic, negative astral, things like that, bad energy, debris from your psyche. And oftentimes when we do things that affect our psyche on a deep level, such as embarrassing situations or when we do things we're not supposed to, it can cross our intention, so to speak, in life, and it can keep us kind of from moving forward. It can halt our progression as people who are here to evolve spiritually and physically and emotionally and financially. And, we're supposed to have good quality lives. We're not supposed to be bound up and tied up. And unfortunately, living here in this material matrix, it can be very easy, if you're not on your game, to get crossed. And you can get crossed by other people. People can send negative thoughts your way. People can put stress on you. Stress is another way that we can become crossed. Stress can become so abundant and so prevalent in our life that it clouds our ability to get out of stress. So I'll talk about the uncrossing bath ritual. You can do uncrossing candle spells, uncrossing powders, teas. There's so many different things. This is just kind of an I'm going to stop talking. Let's get right into it. Peace be with you all. All right, you guys, welcome. This is going to be another video on the magical arts. This isn't really going to be a lesson per se. It's just something that I want to share with you. This is a particular ritual. I'm going to show you guys how to make an uncrossing bath potion. Now, this may sound kind of foreign to some of you guys. Some of you guys here on the Patreon page may not be interested in magic and the occult arts. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt that magic in herbal practices like this and some other things I'm going to talk about in this video have helped me 10,000-fold on my healing journey. Healing is much more than just consuming herbs and drinking them and putting things in your body. It's also about tapping into the spiritual side of your psyche, the spiritual side of your human nature, and you can really tap into the power and the reality of your subconscious mind when you allow yourself to spiritually play, so to speak. to make potions, to do rituals, things like that, because the language of the subconscious mind is symbology, is symbolism. A lot of these acts that you're doing when you create potions, or when you do things like this, like make uncrossing bathwater potions. I'm going to tell you guys what that is in a minute, but a lot of this stuff is heavily symbolic. So I'm just going to get this out of the way before we continue with this. Neglecting the spiritual aspect of your healing journey is really kind of missing your mark in a sense, because the spiritual aspect, healing is a very spiritual thing. And if you practice magic, if you practice spiritualism, if you practice things like this, if you practice the things that I've outlined in the Learning the Magical Arts series here on the Patreon page, you can effectively, if you stay true to your practice, really get a lot more out of your healing, and you can get a lot more fulfillment out of life if you tap into the spiritual side of who you are as a human. I hope that makes sense. So this uncrossing ritual is heavily prevalent in a spiritual practice called hoodoo, and hoodoo should not be mistaken for voodoo. They're very different. Hoodoo essentially is African American folk magic. It's based around removing curses and hexes and bad energy, jinxes from your consciousness, from your psyche, from your subconscious mind. It's also very involved in... Hoodoo is also known as root work. It's heavily known as conjure as well, but root work or hoodoo or conjure, whatever you call it, is a basic system of magic that is designed to help you get your life on track and to get all of your needs met, whether it be financially, health-wise, things of that nature, romance, protection. Within magic, you have a lot of different approaches towards it. So there's esoteric magic, which is heavily associated with learning to understand the mechanics of how the universe works. A lot of the subjects on magic nowadays can be very confusing because they're about things that aren't really practical. A lot of the magical systems nowadays are geared toward communicating with spirits or evoking spirits or communicating with angels and drawing angels down from the astral plane and things like that so that you can communicate that with them. You know, practices like the Enochian system of John Dee and Edward Kelly, that magic system is heavily associated with summoning spirits and petitioning spirits and learning secrets from them. But a lot of the magical systems available today kind of deviate away from the practicality of the hoodoo system. And hoodoo is something that I've been practicing for years, ladies and gentlemen. It has helped me with my health. It has helped me with my charisma. It has helped me with finances. It has helped me with so many different things. And it has indeed enhanced my spiritual life and my connection with nature. Because essentially hoodoo, you're using natural components, herbs and things like that, to create an outcome in your reality. So basically all forms of magic, when we're dealing with practical magic, and practical magic, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what that is, please go back and watch my Learning the Magical Arts series here on the Patreon page. I outline that heavily, what practical magic is, in part 1 and part 2. And those are available for viewing if you're a Patreon member here on the Patreon page. But practical magic, you guys, is about getting your needs met, getting your finances situated, getting your love life situated, removing bad energy from your life, dissecting your subconscious mind, going in and removing all the bad programming in your subconscious mind that is ruining your life. Because as I said in parts 1 and part 2 of the Learning the Magical Arts series, your subconscious mind is basically your humble servant. It's like the genie in the bottle, so to speak. In fact, the genie in the bottle symbolism is heavily about the subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind will grant you whatever you want as long as you feed it the correct information. And so many people here in the Matrix are receiving hell and not knowing why, because deep down in their subconscious mind, they have illegitimate, bad information that they've fed their subconscious mind from a very young age in the form of beliefs and thoughts and emotions. And because those thoughts, emotions, and beliefs have settled into the deepest aspects of our psyche, our subconscious mind now takes that information and creates the world around us. So bad luck, in my opinion, is nothing more than bad programming in your subconscious mind. So hoodoo is about so many different things, but at the core of it, it's about getting rid of the negative information in your subconscious mind that is keeping you from being able to keep your ends met in life, so that you can have a happy life where you have freedom and you don't have a ton of obligations that are stressing you out. It's about rewiring who you are so that you can become what you want to be, so that you can have the life that you want. Because as I've said in parts 1 and part 2 of the Learning the Magical Arts series, most of us here in this world have the life that we're currently living, and on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have a life that we wish we could be living. So hoodoo is about reassessing and reprogramming your life as it is today in the present moment so that you can achieve the life that you want. I hope that makes sense. It's all about just becoming who you want to be, having the life that you want. So these are spiritual practices. The power of these practices lies in the fact that these herbs have astral components, they have elemental components, there are living intelligences in these herbs that are actually alive on the physical and non-physical levels of existence, and you can tap into that power and use it. But essentially the real power, ladies and gentlemen, of hoodoo and practical magic like this, and this recipe I'm going to share with you, is that it affects your subconscious mind. It allows you to enter into a ritualistic landscape of ideology. Let me rephrase that. When you practice things like this, when you go out of your way to get all these ingredients ready, when you lay it all out, when you clean the table and everything to prepare a potion, what you're essentially doing is you're creating a state of consciousness that is much different than your day-to-day consciousness. That's where the power lies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try to explain that to the best of my ability. Some of these concepts are a little bit difficult to explain, and I don't have a ton of time to make this video, so I'm going to try to keep it succinct. But when you lay out everything like this, and you take time out of your day to do something for yourself, because you love yourself, you are creating a magical state of consciousness. You are creating a state of consciousness, a framework of thinking and feeling that is much different than the day-to-day bustle of your everyday life, your 9-to-5 life, that is imbued with stress, that is imbued, chances are, with obligations that you may or may not want to live up to or do. You are creating a meditative state, so to speak, with your eyes open. These practices are like a state of meditation, but you're actually moving. You're not just sitting down in one position and trying to clear your mind or something of that nature. You are getting outside of your day-to-day reality, and you are spending some time for yourself. You're practicing these things because you love yourself and you want to improve your life. Anytime you take time out of your day to try to improve your life or to improve your character, to improve your charisma and things like that, you are creating a magical state of mind that can, if nurtured, affect the subconscious mind and tweak the subconscious mind. A lot of us have subconscious minds that need to be revamped. We need to metaphorically vacuum the debris and the dust out of our subconscious mind and get the slate clean so that we can rebuild. So hoodoo, essentially, you guys, is all about just reprogramming yourself so that you can have a life so that you can have the life that you want, a life of freedom and creativity, a life where the slate is clean so that now you can leave a mark, an impression on the world, whether that be through helping people or things of that nature. But hoodoo and practices like this, uncrossing rituals, and again, excuse my ranting, you guys, I'll explain exactly what those are in just a moment. These things have helped me massively throughout the years, and I've had confirmation. I've been in states where I've been in massive confusion and turmoil and depression, and candle magic and things like this have really helped me get myself back on track, because these rituals have an effect on the subconscious mind, and chances are, if you're depressed, if you have issues mentally, emotionally, there's something in your subconscious mind that is creating that reality. And because when you create a ritual, it is so much different than your day-to-day consciousness that you're in, whether it be, driving down the freeway or going to get groceries, because the context is so much different. These states of consciousness that you're in while you're brewing a potion or creating a candle spell, a candle ritual, they can be so much different than our day-to-day consciousness, these states of mind that we're in when we create these things, that it can actually reprogram the subconscious mind symbolically. It can kind of metaphorically burn some of the garbage out of the subconscious mind and create a cleaner slate. I hope that makes sense, you guys. The subconscious mind is a subject that is really hard to define in layman's terms. It's something that is heavily, you could go on, you could study the subconscious mind from now until the day you die and probably only get past the tip of the iceberg. You'll have to excuse me. It's been a long week and I haven't had caffeine this morning, but uncrossing rituals, you guys, are designed to uncross you. And in hoodoo or in magical practices, when you are crossed, it's when you have a jinx that you've usually put on yourself. Jinxes can be put on you from other people when people have a lot of negative emotions and thoughts about you. Because our thoughts are all connected through the universal collective consciousness, through the subconscious mind, all of our subconscious minds are intimately connected. When someone has a lot of negative thinking or feeling about you, it can, depending on your character and how well you are fortressed mentally and emotionally and spiritually, it can actually drain your vitality, drain your health, and it can actually affect the way that you think. It can affect your mentality. So an uncrossing ritual is usually brought upon by people's own negative self-image or self-perception, If you have like an embarrassing situation in life, at the job or at school, and it really traumatizes you, it can jinx you, it can cross you. It can take a normal pattern of thinking and feeling and bind it up into a knot, so to speak. And before you know it, emotionally and mentally and spiritually, you can't make any progress, or you're stuck in a negative thought form. You're stuck in a cycle of negative thinking. Uncrossing rituals are designed to uncross you. The power comes from the fact that you are taking time out of your day to uncross yourself. This is a spiritual practice. A lot of people want to just dwell and mire in their own negative thinking and become a victim. But when you get out of that victim mentality and go out of your way to create something, a ritual to rewire yourself and to uncross yourself, that's where the power lies, ladies and gentlemen, because your subconscious mind knows that you are nurturing yourself and it will unbind the knots. I hope that makes sense. And it's all done through your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your beliefs. So, uncrossing rituals, you guys, are usually involve candles, where you will anoint a candle with uncrossing oil, which is a specific magical oil that has been anointed with specific herbs pertaining to the uncrossing energy. Now, in hoodoo, you guys, there are things like protection rituals, uncrossing rituals, romance rituals. And each one of those topics, whether it be romance, for instance, we'll talk about romance and uncrossing. Uncrossing rituals, or the subject, let's put it that way, of uncrossing, whether it be through a candle spell or a potion, uncrossing rituals have particular herbs that are used in uncrossing rituals. Those herbs are completely different than the herbs that you would use in a romance ritual. Romance and uncrossing herbs and correspondences, such as gems and things like that, are completely different than the herbs and the correspondences that you would use for a protection spell or a protection ritual. I hope that makes sense. So each energy that you're working with in a spell has particular herbs and things like, for this spell, frankincense and myrrh are directly associated with uncrossing, removing jinxes, removing hexes, removing negative thought forms that you've created or have had put on you. So I hope that makes sense. Each particular type of work that you're going to do in hoodoo or pretty much any other magical practice has a certain set of tools that you use for that particular energy. So again, uncrossing has particular herbs used for uncrossing. Protection spells have completely different herbs and gems and metals that you can use for the protection spell. And what these things are called, they're correspondences. So a correspondence of... Let me try to explain what a correspondence is. A correspondence, when we're referring to magic, is something that resonates with a particular energy that you're working with. So basil is a correspondence of uncrossing. Limes are a particular correspondence to uncrossing. So is lavender. This is lavender, and see if the camera will focus. Apparently it doesn't want to focus. Really wanted to show you guys this though, because it's really pretty. I don't know why that'll focus. Come on. Gonna give it a minute. Apparently it doesn't want to focus. Let's put that right there. Each energy, you guys, I don't want to babble on with the mechanics of all this for too long. I don't want to bore you. But each energy or each type of thing that you're working with, a particular energy, whether it be romance or love or protection, has particular herbs and different correspondences within the magical context. And how these things have been categorized is through hundreds of years of usage and the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. And I will talk about the Kabbalistic Tree of Life in the near future, but the Kabbalistic Tree of Life is basically a diagram of how the universe works and how consciousness manifests in multiple different forms, whether it be physical or non-physical. It explains the mechanics of how the universe works. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life is like a cosmic computer diagram that contains angels. It contains all of the planets, and each of the planets, they have different metals that you can use and herbs and gems, and this is just a way you use these gems. For instance, if you're working with Saturn, I'm currently doing a Saturn spell because I'm in the midst of my Saturn return as I approach my 30th birthday. And Saturn, if you look at the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, has color associations with the color black. It has associations with the gem black tourmaline. It has associations with the herb shepherd's purse. Whereas if you were working with Mars, Mars has a completely different association with different herbs, has a completely different color association. Mars is associated with red, and it has completely different spirits and angels that govern it. So this is not, hoodoo isn't necessarily planetary magic, but you can imbue it with planetary energy, which is what I'm doing. I'm doing an uncrossing spell while I work with the planet Saturn, because I have a few things, some anger issues and some stuff that I'm holding on to that I want to let go of. And as I approach my 30th birthday, I'm on my Saturn return right now. A Saturn return, you guys, is when you are born, Saturn is in a particular position in the celestial sky. And it takes about 29 and a half years for Saturn to come back completely to where it was when you were born. And in that time, it teaches you a lot of things. You can, however, resist Saturn's lessons, and if you do that, you will experience strife and struggle until you learn those lessons. So if you don't learn the lessons that Saturn tries to teach you by age 30, you can have to wait another 30 years to learn those, or to apply those lessons to reap what you sow. Saturn is the planet that teaches you that you reap what you sow. So I do have some anger issues and some stuff that I'm still holding on to, and I want to help uncross that. I want to uncross my psyche from any negative energy, and I'm going to use a uncrossing bath to do that. I'm not just saying that this is going to cure me, but it's a tool that you can use in conjunction with a healthy lifestyle and things of that nature. These are just tools, ladies and gentlemen, nothing more. But tools have massive efficacy. All of magic is the usage of tools to a large extent until you can get to the point where you don't need them anymore. But these tools have a direct effect on us in our subconscious mind because it gives us our hands something to do and our mind something to do in an artistic fashion. I hope that makes sense. A true magician that has gone through everything and learned everything doesn't need tools. He can just get into a meditative state and communicate with his subconscious mind. But for us Westerners, with all the stimulus and all the craziness that we've programmed ourselves with and been programmed by living in the material world, using these tools can greatly benefit us because it gives our hands something to do and our mind something to do, and it allows us to do that within a spiritual context. It allows us to be creative. And creativity is largely symbolic. In the language of the subconscious mind is symbolism. This is a great way to tap into the power of your subconscious mind. So I'm not going to show you guys how to do an uncrossing candle spell, but essentially what you would do is you would program the candle with your intent, and I talk about that, I believe, in the refresher course of the Learning the Magical Arts series here on the Patreon page. But you would anoint the candle with your intention, Maybe you want to not have anxiety. Maybe you want to remove any negative thought patterns that you've generated. Maybe every day you feel like you can't even get out of bed. Maybe you're depressed all the time. That could be your intention, and you would program that intention into the candle, and then you would dip the candle in oil. And there are ways to make uncrossing oils. To make uncrossing oils, you would take uncrossing herbs, put them in a glass vessel, add oil to the herbs and let it sit for a couple weeks and leave the herbs in there. And now you have a consecrated oil that you can use every time you want to do an uncrossing spell. You can also anoint yourself with the uncrossing oil. But you would take uncrossing oil, and you can just use olive oil if you don't have that. You'd get the candle covered in oil, and then you would roll the candle in your herbs, ladies and gentlemen, and then you would light it while you focused on white light, or white light penetrating your entire body, and you would imagine all of the negativity and you just drifting away as the candle burns. That is a very simplified. This candle actually looks pink in this. I don't know why. It's because it's actually white. It's weird. That is a very simplified version of this. Usually when people do uncrossing spells, it's for a 7-day period. They use 7-day candles, and they call on saints. They call on their ancestors. They recite psalms. You can write incantations or affirmations, and you would repeat positive words every day, and you would anoint yourself with the oil. Again, you can get as simplified with this as you want, or as elaborate and complex. And this is very simple right here. It may look like there's a lot of stuff, but there's actually really not that much. When I practice hoodoo, usually about 9 times out of 10, I go out of my way to make it incredibly elaborate. You have to remember, you guys, that within magic, input equals output. It's the input. It's what you're thinking and feeling while you brew this stuff that really matters. It's what you put into it is what you get out. Again, this is just a tool. When I do candle spells, I'm going to have to show you guys at some point. I'm heading back to California in about 5 days, and when I'm there, I plan on doing some more magical stuff, and I'll show you guys how I decorate my altar when I do a candle spell. Statuary, herbs, incantations, I write petitions, I write what I want. It's very important in magic that you know what you want. But again, I put the most emphasis in my magic is what I put into it. It's not just, oh, I'm going to throw this stuff together and I'm going to fix my problem. No. It's what you put into it. It's the desire and the longing and the feeling and the emotion that you put into it as you prepare your herbs. These basil leaves are grown in the garden out front. I grew these. There was a lot of love and patience and care going. There has been a lot of love and patience and care put into this. And now I can use this in my spell work, and it'll have that much more oomph because I put so much time and patience and effort into it. I visualize with my herbs. I hold these and I perform Reiki with these herbs, and I close my eyes and I imagine my consciousness going into the herbs, and I program the herbs much like you program a crystal. I program everything. Usually when I do a candle spell, I use at least 7 days of prior work. I will meditate and do things for about 7 days before I do the actual spell. That way when you do it, you've had time to know what you want, and there's no unanswered questions that you may have about what you're doing. Hope that makes sense. It's all about input equals output. So anyways, you guys, I wanted to just show you an uncrossing bath spell. Now what this is it has a bunch of herbs that have been known throughout hoodoo and even Kabbalistic magic. These herbs have an anti-hex quality to them. They have been associated with good luck and jinx removal and things like that. But this is, I'm going to fill this up more once I start boiling this. I'm going to make about probably twice as much. I'm not sure. I may leave it the way it is right now. But what this is, you guys, is water that I'm going to consecrate. I'm essentially making holy water, and I'm going to pray over this and recite certain words of power. I'm going to call on my ancestors and ask them to bless this, and I'm going to bless it myself. I'm going to ask the angels to bless it, the Kundalini. And what I'm essentially doing is I'm creating a solution of water that I'm going to saturate the magical elements of these herbs into. This water is going to be for purification of the soul and body and the mind. And when I take a bath, I'm going to fill these, after it's done boiling and cooling, I'm going to fill these vessels with the water. And when I take a bath, I'll dump about half of one of these, or a full one, into the bath. And I will soak in this herb-saturated water that I've blessed. And I will do visualizations of any negativity leaving my body while I'm in the water, in the bath. You can also do shower spells with this, you guys, but the bath is more effective because it allows you to soak in the solution that you've created. If you do showers, showers are cool, but showers are constantly rinsing the water off of your body. In the magical arts, whether it be ceremonial, high magic, you name it, baths are usually employed, ritual baths, because it helps you relax. Water is heavily associated with being in a state of calm. But being clean, cleanliness is next to godliness. I do believe that phrase is heavily true. But you're purifying yourself with intention by doing this. And as crazy as it sounds, many people think it sounds crazy. I don't think it sounds crazy because I know the power of stuff like this. I know that it works. My beliefs allow me to derive the most power from this. Every time I've done a spell like this, it has worked massively. It improves my charisma. It improves my state of emotional well-being. You're lifting yourself up when you practice personal magic, you guys. That's the whole purpose of this. The whole purpose. And these plants, these herbs, they all have an astral component on the astral plane. They are living intelligences. These plants contain particular intelligences, elemental intelligences that are angelic. I know that may sound crazy, but everything in this material world is living. All of these things contain living astral spiritual counterparts. And when you bathe in this stuff after you create it, you are allowing that to come into your life and help you improve yourself. These herbs also, when you absorb these herbs topically, has a very calming effect on the skin, on the consciousness. Absorbing tea through your skin is one of the greatest ways to get it in your body. The body loves being fed transdermically, also known as topically. You could also add a little bit of magnesium chloride into this, but I don't believe I have any of that. But anyways, I don't want to keep babbling. I hope that makes sense, you guys. Essentially, these bath rituals, you can make them for protection. You can make them for drawing romance into your life. You can make them for just about anything. Check out hoodoo. I'm going to try to remember right now to put a correspondence list for uncrossing herbs and gemstones. And if you have any questions, please let me know. If I'm not clarifying things properly or making it easy to understand, please let me know. I take no offense to that. In fact, it'll help me improve my craft. But filtered water, you guys, I'm going to just give you guys a brief rundown of what's in this. Sage. I've got some sage in here. I've got rosemary. I've got some of the lavender in the rose hip combo. In fact, I'm going to add a little bit more rose hips. And as I'm doing this, I'm using my mind to ask the herbs and the intelligences of nature to help me remove my problem. Nature hears you. Your Kundalini hears you, ladies and gentlemen. The spirit guides around you and within you, the ancestors within you and around you, hear you telepathically when you have emotions and thoughts. As you're creating these potions, envision what it is you want to improve in your life. So it's much easier than it may sound. Add a little bit more lavender. I have a bay leaf, you guys. Going to throw that right in there. I have my basil, and I've already blessed all this and sat with it and meditated with it. I have a lime, and I'm going to squeeze the juice of this lime in here, the whole lime, and I'm also going to put the rind in there as well. This is for spiritual, mental, emotional purification. I've got some anger issues right now that I'm working through, and I'm going to use this. When I get in the bath with this, I'm going to soak and imagine all the anger just coming out of my body, being drawn out of my body by the herbs and the water, and then when I let the water go down the drain, I'm going to envision it all going down the drain. Anger, things in your life that are non-beneficial to your life don't need to be there. These are tools to help you remove them psychically in the mental field. Okay, I've added a drop of frankincense, you guys, to that, and I've added a few pieces of myrrh. frankincense and myrrh. I also have lemon balm. Lemon balm has an association in magic with being associated with peace of mind and happiness. Oftentimes, anger problems spawn from jealousy. Oftentimes, anger problems are a direct byproduct of constantly just not seeing the blessings that you have in your life. It's from being emotionally unhappy. So, lemon balm, remember, that's an intention. I'm throwing my intention out of my body through physical form into this tea. I hope that makes sense. And the intention to feel better, to let go of things that are unnecessary, and that's what Saturn is all about. Right now I'm working with Saturnalian magic quite heavily. I'm trying to remove the negative influences that I've given myself so that I can actually learn the lessons that Saturn is trying to teach me instead of being humbled by them, drugged down by them. I've got a little bit of shepherd's purse. Now I'm adding shepherd's purse, you guys, because shepherd's purse has a Saturnalian correspondence. It's associated with the planet Saturn. And because I'm working with Saturn, I want to throw that in there as well. I've also added a little bit of salt, and I have some sugar here, you guys, symbolic of sweetness. Anger is often associated with not being happy, and if you don't have a lot of sweetness in your life, that can lead to unhappiness. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of the rose hips, and you can see that's absolutely beautiful. Oh, and I also have a tea bag of peppermint. Peppermint is known to draw negativity out of the skin, the body, the mind. And you know, people may say, oh, that's crazy. How would that work? When you drink peppermint tea, you guys, it produces a state of calm. If you drink rosehip tea, it helps calm you. Now, who's to say that that won't have the effect on you when you bathe in that water? In fact, some of these teas are more effective when you absorb them through your skin as opposed to oral ingestion. Oral ingestion oftentimes is only minimally effective in comparison to transdermal ingestion. So right now, you guys, I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to put this on medium, a little past medium, and bring it to a boil. I'm going to boil that for about 10 to 30 minutes until all the color is out of these herbs. I'm going to let it cool, and I'm going to strain it, put it in these bottles, and then we will continue talking. Just a brief little message here, you guys. These are some of the tools that I'm using with my planetary magic and meditations with the planet Saturn. Saturn has a lot of very important things to teach you. It's one of the things that I think many people neglect. Saturn has got a bad rap, and many people fear Saturn, and that's because of religious indoctrination. Now, I'm not going to explain in this video most likely what these tools are used for, but I have them here while I brew this tea because I'm trying to get all of the Saturnalian correspondences around this tea while I make it. Now, one thing you guys can do, just a brief little message, while you brew this tea, you can open the lid, and if you're careful, don't put your face right above it, but you can take the lid off and kind of move this piece of black tourmaline. Oops. You can move the lid like this and kind of fumigate, throw the steam at you, and imagine the steam moving through you and removing any negativity. Or whatever, you know, if you did a romance ritual, you can imagine romance coming into your life, things like that. But the sword is here. This is actually just kind of a dagger of sorts. It's not really a sword, but the dagger in magic is associated with thought and intention and the ability to take a thought and turn it into a reality. So what I'll do is I'll take this and focus on my intention and run the blade around the kind of cauldron of sorts, and imagine my intention moving through the dagger into the water. But this is a very oversimplified thing, you guys. It's much more complicated than, you know. It's all about how you use your mind. Now, again, I wish I could get into... This is the magic square of Saturn. These are symbols of Saturn. This is a particular sigil for the Saturnalian spirits that you can tap into if you're working with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. I'm going to save this stuff for a future video where I can get into detail about it. I just have it out here because I have this stuff around me while I'm making this tea, because I'm trying to work with Saturn and the Saturn spirits while I create this concoction, because I'm trying to work out some of the negative aspects that I've neglected from not working with Saturn to the best of my ability. So, but again, just a brief little tip, you can fumigate yourself with this stuff. I'm going to boil this for about 10 more minutes and then turn it off. So I've strained the plant material from the water, and this is about how much I have left. There's still a little bit of fluid in the lime pieces and in this leftover material. And what I'm going to do, you guys, is I'm going to refill this full of water about halfway, sprinkle a little bit of salt in there, and then say a prayer to the earth in hopes of things getting better here on earth. This is something that I like to do often. This is known as a libation, when you create a consecrated fluid and then you dump it usually into the earth, into the dirt, onto the greenery, onto the grass. Sometimes people will dump libations into flower beds, and it's essentially just pouring of water with an intention. And this is another form of magic that you can do. For a few years I would create potions in bottles like this, and then I would go out by my apple tree in the backyard and dump about half or a fourth of the bottle every day in the soil around the apple tree, while I envisioned the earth becoming pristine, a lack of wars, human communication getting better, just trying to pump intention into the earth, positive intention. And what's cool about libations, if you dump them into like the soil or around trees and stuff, the water actually becomes part of the ecosystem. You can feed plants, and those plants can take that intention and then grow with that intention. And it's a pretty interesting and ancient form of ritual and magic. So again, I'll fill this about halfway full of water, sprinkle a little bit of salt, hold the sides of it and do some Reiki. Imagine the energy of my hands going into the water, and then I'll dump the water into the backyard somewhere, and this stuff will biodegrade and become part of the earth. But I'm going to let this cool, you guys. I cannot find the shower plug, the bath plug, excuse me. So I'm probably going to either do a foot bath with this or take it into the shower with me and dump it on my body and do some visualization work. The visualization is very, very beneficial, you guys. If you visualize yourself getting something with enough determination for a long enough period of time, chances are you will get that. You will get what you want. I've proved this, to myself on a handful of occasions. Positive thought backed with positive action, backed with positive intention and positive visualization is a great way to start mapping out information for your subconscious mind. So doing stuff like this is, again, this is an uncrossing ritual. I'm going to do the shower with the uncrossing water. Then I'm going to vacuum the entire house. I'm going to do some dusting and just tidy up the house. This is a great thing. In hoodoo, cleanliness not only of the body and of the mind, but of the living quarters is very important. You don't want a lot of dust in the house and animal hair, and you don't want stuff just cluttering your home. Getting rid of the clutter, reorganizing your house, cleaning it, that's a very important thing, you guys. A lot of people who want to practice magic, a lot of people that I've communicated with who are trying to create a better life for themselves are living in utter disarray. You know, their cars are filled with junk, their houses are dirty, they don't make their beds and things like that. And that just feeds negative information into the subconscious mind, you guys. Your living environment is an extension of yourself, and it says a lot about who you are and what's going on the inside. If you're living in an environment filled with clutter, if you don't take the cat box, or if you don't clean the cat box regularly, if you have cats, if you're not cleaning up the backyard and raking and just keeping your living space clean, it says a lot about what's going on the inside. So you can join these two practices, uncrossing rituals, with cleaning the house, cleaning the bed, doing vacuuming, doing the dishes on time. Don't put this stuff off. Make sure to make not only taking care of your internal environment and your psyche and things of that nature important, but really go out of your way to make sure that your living space in your house is clean, you guys. dust once a week, twice a week. Clean things regularly. Make it part of your day-to-day routine, because that will actually create kind of a flip effect where if you take care of your external world, even if you're neglecting or lacking something in your internal world and things like that, what I mean by that is maybe you have emotional issues. Maybe if you have emotional instability, what oftentimes people find is that usually people with emotional instabilities have some type of reflection of that in their living environment. So by taking care of your living environment and keeping things clean, it can have an effect on your subconscious mind and on your conscious mind and start to make you feel better internally. And using these two practices in conjunction can be very beneficial. But again, this is in no way, shape, or form a perfect recipe. What I mean by that is you need to take your creativity, if you're going to use this, and do what you want with it. Don't just follow the recipe because I made it a specific way. Just make sure to use safe things. Make sure to use non-toxic herbs and things of that nature. And, you know, if you uncrossing candle spells are also very beneficial. What you can do is you can use uncrossing candle spells with uncrossing baths, with uncrossing teas that you can drink, and you can really make it a part of your practice to incorporate multiple different facets within a ritual. And what I mean by that is, instead of just using the bath, use the candles with the bath. Go out of your way to keep your living space clean. Do a detox. Activated charcoal is great for a detox. Get all the poisons out of your bloodstream, you guys. And if you couple your magical practice, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. If you couple your health practice, your health regimen, with magic, herbal magic and hoodoo and things like that, Kabbalistic magic, you can really get the most out of it. And it really makes things fun too, because you're not just approaching health in the way that most people do. You're actually tethering the spiritual aspect to it, because health is a very spiritual thing, and many people who are health conscious lack the spiritual side of things. Life is an adventure. Have fun with it. And that wraps up this segment of the uncrossing bath spell portion. Alright guys, so I'm going to do this ritual for a set amount of days, and this is day 2. Now remember, uncrossing rituals and things of this nature, you usually will, while you bathe in a bath filled with this type of solution, these potions, you will recite certain psalms from the Bible. If you resonate with the Bible, you can recite psalms from pretty much any tradition, religious tradition, but Psalm 51 or Psalm 37, and you'll repeat it multiple times while you envision yourself being cleaned by the solution that you're bathed in, and you imagine all the impurities or negative aspects of your psyche washing down the drain when you get out of the bath. Normally you'll use candles during this. You can really make this a very elaborate ritual, and as I've said in the previous segment, these rituals are designed to help purify your mind through different ritual means. And because rituals are heavily symbolic, it affects the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind, the language of the subconscious, is symbolism. Not to mention herbs and things of this nature, you guys, have a very purifying effect on the senses. When you bathe in a solution like this, you are breathing in the vapor, if it's hot water, the steam of these essential oils that are contained in these plants. They have a calming effect. It can help you relax, and getting into a state of relaxation is essential for reprogramming your mind. You can't really reprogram your mind beneficially if you're in a state of stress. So not only does this ritual help you on the psychic levels, mental, emotional, and physical, spiritual levels, but it also helps you on the stress levels by, the hot water is going to help your muscles relax. It's going to help you enter visualization, and you can really do a lot of different forms of magic with this, you guys. You can do just so many things. I'm going to get on to that in the near future. I just wanted to give you guys a simple recipe. This is day 2 of my ritual, and I'm actually going to put this entire thing of basil in here. This formula for day 2 is a little bit different. I added a lemon instead of a lime because I didn't have any limes left. I added some cloves. Cloves are associated in magic for helping remove jinxes, and they help remove the influence of negative thinking and things of that nature. So I have a lot of basil here. This is fresh basil. I just cut this. Basil is very, very special. It's mentioned in many different religious texts, including the Bible. There's a handful of different herbs that are used in the hoodoo practice that have associations, or they're discussed in the Bible as being purifying herbs. So I'm going to put that right in there. I've got some rose hips, you guys, a lemon balm bag of tea, some bay leaf, and I also have a peppermint tea bag in there, and I also have a little bit of rosemary, not as much as yesterday, but I'm going to put that right in there. I put some frankincense and some myrrh in there, other purifying constituents that are mentioned in the Bible. This is frankincense resin, myrrh resin, not the cheapest stuff in the world, but a little goes a long way. And I'm currently working with planet Saturn while I do these rituals to purify myself, because I want to get the most out of my Saturn return. I want to work with Saturn and its influence that it has on me in my late 20s, instead of resisting the lessons that it's trying to teach me. Many people resist Saturn's influence. Saturn's all about boundaries and limitations and pursuing the life path that you are put here to pursue. Many people have problems during their first Saturn return because they are doing things in their life. They're living a life that is not authentic to their true purpose. Saturn comes around, and when you're between 27 and 30 and 31 years old, it really can put a lot of stress on people, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be stressed. Saturn is like the parent that says, Saturn is like a loving parent. It's tough love that doesn't just recommend that you go and do whatever it is you're supposed to do in life. It tells you you have to do it. So if you reject Saturn's influence, if you try to push away from it, it can lead to a lot of issues. And typically people have 2 Saturn returns in their lifestyle, or in their life, excuse me. You have one by the time you're 30 years old, then you have another one by the time you're 60, and if you get lucky, you have a third one by the time you're about 90. And Saturn is just an absolutely misunderstood planet, very interesting planet, probably my favorite planet. I don't know if it's necessarily possible to have a favorite planet, but I think the mysticism around Saturn is absolutely fascinating. But again, Saturn returns, you guys. I think I mentioned it in the first segment. A Saturn return, when you're born, Saturn is in a particular place in the sky in the zodiac, and it takes about 30 years for it to be in the come back and swing around to the same position it was in when you were born. And that's a rebirth cycle. You have one by the time you're about 30, one by the time you're about 60, and one by the time you're about 90. And they each teach us different things, but if we can work with Saturn and accept its influence on us, and we can do that through rituals and meditating on the Saturn sigils and things like that, which I will discuss in upcoming videos. I'm going to do a lengthy course on planetary magic, you guys, but you can really get the most out of these experiences. These planets are having an influence on us and our psyche, and they're trying to teach us things, but oftentimes in life we resist what they're trying to teach us, because especially with Saturn, because Saturn is it's a tough love thing. It forces you to break out of toxic patterns that have become very comfortable. And that can be very difficult for many people. So welcoming Saturn's influence and aligning with it, and there's ways to do that. If you work with the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, you can meditate with the particular sigils of the archangels that rule that planet. I will get into that and how to do that in the near future, you guys. I know I'm saying some things that require other pieces of information to make sense out of them, but I will get into planetary magic and how to work with the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. And I will, in the near future, show you guys the inner temple exercise in lesson 3 of the Magical Arts series. That is essential. Learning how to get into your magic temple. It's a mental temple, but in that mental temple, that's how you work with your subconscious mind. It may sound oversimplified, but it's really not. And I will discuss that in lesson 3. That's really important. It's like the foundation of magic is learning how to enter into your mental temple and work with the symbolism and the 4 elements within the mental temple: earth, air, fire, and water, as well as your subconscious mind. I talk about the mental temple in lessons 1 and 2 and the refresher courses. If you're watching this and haven't seen those lessons, definitely go back and watch them. Vital information in those lessons. But right here, you guys, I have a little altar set up with some planetary symbolism of the planet Saturn. This is a particular spirit, this sigil, and I'll talk about how sigils work. It's like a telephone number for a spirit. I've got my dagger here and a bell. And I'm just going to anoint these. I'm going to recite Psalms 51 and 37 over this while I brew it. And the bell just seeks to kind of eliminate any static negative energy around here. It may sound a little new agey, but ladies and gentlemen, this stuff is heavily symbolic, it's heavily ritualistic, and that's why it has an effect. But I'm going to light some Saturnalian incense. I'm going to meditate over the planet, the sphere of Saturn, and use this to wash away negative influences and things that I've done to cross myself by not working entirely with Saturn's influence over me, because it's very easy to struggle with Saturn, and I don't want to do that. Especially now that I'm close to my complete Saturn return. Saturn kind of comes out of nowhere and forces you to see certain things. And this past month has been just crazy, you guys. Saturn returns are somewhat difficult because, again, it's tough love. And there's some things I've been learning and things that Saturn's trying to show me that I've been resisting for quite a while now. And I don't want to do that anymore. And because I've been resisting it, I've kind of jinxed myself in a sense. That's how I look at it. So this is a ritual that I'm going to use with Saturn. I'm going to call on the archangels and the angelic kingdoms of Saturn to bless this. And I'm really just trying to purify my mind and remove the junk in my mind that's keeping me from working with Saturn while it moves through my particular birth sign. But just wanted to show you guys recipe number 2. When I do this on Monday again, I'll probably change things up. I used the last of my basil, so I'll leave basil out of it, but I'll still add the myrrh and the frankincense, the bay leaves and things like that. So experiment, you guys. If this sounds crazy to you, ask yourself why. Healing the mind and healing the body, healing the psyche doesn't have to be as difficult as you think it is. Learning how to approach magic with childlike wonder and to use your intuition. Who's to say that making a pot of herbs and blessing it can't have a massive curing effect on you? You have to get rid of your beliefs, your negative beliefs. Beliefs will constrict and confine the way your magic works. In order for magic to work, you have to believe in it. Peace be with you all.